Welcome to Audacity Marketing with Hazel Kimpo and Michelle Frechette. On this podcast, we'll challenge you to think differently and break free of the same old strategies. We'll push you out of your comfort zone and encourage you to think outside the box. So take notes, make bold decisions, and be audacious. Hey Hazel, how you doing?
Pretty good, Michelle. I am out of the office. I mean, no, wait. I am in an office and out of my home today,
Ooh,
which I didn't even know how to say because it doesn't happen too often.
exactly. And I am not at my home office today. I'm in my office today. So we kind of, yeah, we're both in the office. Neither one of us is at
I
home.
know, it's
That's
like the
pretty cool.
90s.
I've been watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and like she
Oh,
goes to
yes.
work in an office and she's like, I don't know what to wear to sit down because I only ever stand. It's like, that's hysterical. So here we are in the office. We're both sitting down. So that's good.
We
Yeah.
are indeed, and I am going to put my Slack on Do Not Disturb for this important podcast so that
I love it.
Slack rattlesnakes don't make weird noises. Side note before we get started, who thought that was a good idea?
Right? I know. Exactly. It's like that's why I wear headphones on everything I do, because then nobody else hears all of the cacophony that's going on on my computer while I'm doing things. Because one
Like
way or
there has
another,
never been a more anxiety-inducing sound than that like little maraca rattlesnake thing.
that's exactly. And nobody else needs to hear that but me. So I have been watching you build this career over the last little bit, and like you are like knocking it out of the park as far as leveraging network to do the things and make the changes and whatever that, like whatever all those different words are, to build a fulfilling career. At least I'm assuming it's fulfilling. It looks fulfilling from the outside. I think it looks like you're
Yes.
loving what you're doing. And I thought, wow, what a great topic to be talking about, which is networking, because networking is so important in business. And I think people don't think about how important networking is. And so I kind of wanted to like pick your brain a little bit about what you're doing and how you're doing it. And some of us network accidentally and we start to figure it out as we go. And some of us are very strategic about that. And I think I've fallen into a lot of things accidentally. And
Yep.
I think you're very, not that we don't all fall into some of it accidentally, but you're very strategic in how you build community. And I thought maybe you'd have some tips for people.
Yeah, well, to me, I think I'm like this like right in the middle of introvert and extrovert, right? Like networking wears me the hell, or like hanging out with people wears me out. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, that's part of the reason, like one of my biggest flaws in life is I'm kind of a flake because like I don't realize how tired I am. And you've been friends with me, Michelle. You've known like I'm like, I can't do it today. Like,
Like, can we
uh,
move this meeting? Let's do this tomorrow.
yeah, but like extroversion takes a lot out of me.
Yeah.
But I like it. But because of that, I want to be very intentional how I do it.
Mhm.
And the book that like kind of changed the way I thought about this was I read it back in my 20s when I thought networking was dumb, but I didn't know how to do it also. Like all I knew was like networking events were weird. I don't know. It just felt dumb in my
Yeah.
20s, but I also knew I
Sure.
needed to learn. So I read Keith Geraci's book, Never Eat Alone. And Never Eat Alone is really just about that. And I had a remote career job early on back in like 2008. And I remember back then, like, how am I gonna? And I read this book during that time, and I was doing a lot of networking. My job was to be like a local kind of community manager, so I was doing lots of the Never Eat Alone with like the community, but not with my colleagues. So
Mhm.
I intentionally started doing, well, let me do like work dates with my colleagues. I started doing these, and it was early, it was good because I worked remote early on, right? So you realize this sort of you have to have intentional in your connections, or else you won't connect. And um, I started this sort of like book club and these sort of meeting things for the never eat alone concept of my colleagues. And I think I've carried that on throughout my career. I'll let you talk again. I'll say one more thing before, which is I am someone that makes friends with people wherever I work.
Mhm.
I can't give that as advice, but it does. I'm someone that doesn't divide work and personal life. I've tried 100 times. I've never succeeded. And like at this point, I don't think I'm gonna bother spending energy trying anymore. I'll just accept it that like
Yeah.
Michelle, you and I used to work together and now we're friends. Like, and that is how my network in my life has grown.
Yeah.
And it's been clear that way because I genuinely see people as a full person and not just the transaction, I think.
I agree with that 100%. And I see a lot in hiring because, I do some work in the like helping people find jobs, part of WordPress and such.
Mm-hmm.
But I see a lot of comments or direction that says if you see a company saying, we're like a family, that's the company you run from, not the company you join. But the company that you join that actually does treat each other with the respect and things and make those friendships, that actually displays that familial part of it, not necessarily across the entire company, but where you can make those connections like you and I did. I am very much the same as you, and I don't walk into a job and then forget everybody. I'm still texting other people. Like, I mean, I've texted you at 5 a.m, right? Like those kinds of things. And when I first started getting phone numbers for people in WordPress, like, oh, let me give you my phone number, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, I can text this person or that person who like, it almost felt like I was in the inner circle, but that's where I knew that I had started making those kinds of um, building the network that was more than just jobs, but actually building those relationships. So I think what you do with networking is you're not just like doing strategic networking, but you're building strategic relationships, but authentic strategic relationships with
I
people.
think
And I
authenticity
think,
is the key there. I mean, the way
yeah.
I do this in the capitalist marketing world, frankly, is kind of how I function in life too. This is me gross to everybody who's listening to this that I'm friends with. But it's you've heard me say give, 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 ask. Right, that's how I work. Right,
Mm-hmm.
give, 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 ask, and networking has to be the same way for it to work. You have to talk to people several times without asking them for shit. Like, and that's why one of the things I do often, and I think it surprises people that I do this because I'm not like a sentimental person, I guess, but I regularly like text people when I'm thinking about them or like something
Mm-hmm.
random that came up that like, and it doesn't take any effort. And like, how often do you randomly think about someone random or someone that you used to work with years ago? And I do that, and you
Right.
have no idea how often that resparks relationships or just a random thing. And
Yeah.
that's part of the give, 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 ask, just like have random touch points, which
Mm-hmm.
sounds very scientific, but it's how it works.
I will also say something that you do really well is you are good at gift giving
I
because
do.
you
This is my
don't.
love language. You too.
Yeah, but right, we think of things that are specific to the person. I don't buy 20 of something, put them in identical bags and hand them out where it doesn't matter, you could swap the name tags, right? And I know that when you do gift giving, because I've received gifts from you before, they are very intentional and very specific to me and wouldn't make sense if you gave them to somebody else on the team or a different
Sure.
friend. And that's part of that intentionality with that relationship building.
Absolutely. I think like understanding, and I think that's comes back to being friends with the people you work with to some extent, right? You
Mhm.
have when you network, you have to understand the human to some extent, other than like what they do, because honestly, who gives a shit? Like,
Right. Yeah.
because what I'll tell you right now, the business partner I am spinning up a business with, in fact, I'm spinning up two businesses at the same time. Can't even
Mhm.
think of the word. What's the thing when you do two things at the same time?
Simultaneously.
Thank you. It makes you tired when you do it.
I bet.
One of the guys I'm dealing with, and the reason I'm out of the office today is we worked together 11 years ago.
Mhm.
Uh, and we hadn't really even talked that much. We kept in touch, and social media is huge for this, right? Because you can do that sort of vague keeping in touch with people without really keeping in touch.
Right.
Um, but this, I truly believe a career and success isn't like the titles that you've done, isn't the stepping stones. It's all the people you've met. And I know that sounds like the end of an after school special. All the people you met along the way. Um, I can't say how true it is. Like there is no world like when I was younger, you see successful people and you think, oh, they grew because I don't know, they're very smart and they stuck it out and they did a thing. It's like, oh no, over the years you meet so many people that and when you
Mhm.
have a problem, the bucket of people you can turn to is so huge compared to when I was
Absolutely.
21 and like my friends were still like dating high school girls.
Right? Exactly.
Big difference. When you're older, I think that's the benefit of getting older in business is the networking.
Mhm.
Can you expedite that throughout your career? Absolutely. Being intentional throughout your career on meeting those people and
Mhm.
treating them as full humans. Again, like we're about that without audacity. Everything we talk about, Michelle, is being
Absolutely.
authentic, right?
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
networking the same way.
Yeah. I think, and you said, being friends with people. Are you friends with everybody you've ever worked with? Of course not, right? But you're still friendly with people, right? So if you can't actually build friendships, then you can at least be on friendly terms with people that you work with, and that goes a long way as well. So sometimes it's about not burning bridges. Sometimes it's
Yes.
about building bridges, right? And sometimes it's about just that authentic. And I have so many people in my network that I will never benefit from other than the fact that they are friends with me or friendly with me. And I have other people in my network that I have benefited from financially with our relationships, or pushed me forward in my work relationships, or pushed in my career. So there's different ways that you can benefit from those things as well, and it all works together for moving forward.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that's helped me with networking, especially in the way that the internet works today, is just being out there. It's sort of made me understand what all the ladies that used to be on Oprah say when they're putting things out into the universe, right? It's like, oh, I'm
Mhm.
manifesting it and putting it into the universe. Like,
Right.
honestly, I don't really believe in that shit, but it's fine. But the truth of it is, when you're out there doing things, your friend that you went to high school with will hit you up because she opened a store in Oceanside and she wants you to do her marketing. And like
Right.
she has a big network because she sells she's a food distributor, and turns out I'm doing Long Beach Restaurant Week and I need a, and like that sort of network. But that
Mhm.
one happened because you start opening the door, right? You have
Yeah.
to, people don't know that you're looking for things unless you ask. And that is so embarrassing to do, especially on social media. And I don't think I've
Yeah.
gone out there and asked, but just putting your shingle out there and saying what you do, like
Mhm.
people don't know.
Right, exactly. And sometimes making those first steps towards building that network can feel very difficult, especially if you're not an extrovert. And it can feel very tentative and very tenuous, and all of those self-doubts and all of, the things that are in our head can get in the way. But oftentimes, just like I say to somebody, when you go to give a talk and you're told that you have 30 minutes and you're like, how the heck am I going to fill 30 minutes? Then you start talking and they're like 5 minutes left and you're like, but I'm only halfway through, right? It's kind of like you start it and then you don't realize that that first step leads to so much easier things, and oftentimes it's that first step that's the most difficult, and the rest just starts to flow naturally.
Yep,
So
absolutely, absolutely. I am a big believer in the power of networking, and I'm glad that this was our topic today. Keith
yeah.
Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone. It's a book from I think the early 2000s, but it is the one that like speaks about this the most clearly. Of it makes sense to just consistently meet with people that you're hanging out with, and we live in this world where people are very anti meetings and anti, I want to pick your brain for coffee, and I totally get why people are
Hmm.
anti that.
Yeah,
But there's also something to being open to it sometimes. So I don't have a good answer,
absolutely.
but I do
Yeah.
know the answer isn't to be like, my time is worth money and I'm never meeting with you, because you're not going to
Right.
grow your stuff that way.
Yep. Somewhere in between, and strategic about who you say yes to. That's the other thing, right? Not to make it an
So
all or nothing,
Michelle,
but
I wonder for you, you sort of, I mean, what, about 10 years ago or so, as you got into the WordPress space, you came in like, I mean, it felt like, maybe this isn't true, but from me looking at it, it feels like you sort of built a new network from scratch. Is that true? Or tell me about how that went.
yeah, so I got into WordPress because my best friend and I started a nonprofit, and her husband built the website and said, "Here it is, ladies, put your own content in." And I logged into the first website, and when I pushed, I was actually talking about this earlier this week with somebody. I pushed um update on the homepage. Like I couldn't even push
Mhm.
publish because it was already published, right? But I pushed update and saw the words that I wrote suddenly out there for the entire world to see. Obviously, they weren't because it was just published, but the idea that
Yes.
anybody anywhere could see what I had just written was really, heady stuff. It really made you think like this is powerful. And so I started to really be like, oh, I could probably build websites if I thought about it. And I literally started with going to a meetup and starting to build my network there. And somebody came back from a word camp where they're like, hey, have you ever been to word camp? And I'm like, oh, what's that? And started going to word camps. And then I was like, I
Mhm.
could probably speak at one of these. And literally it took a couple of years, but all of a sudden I'm being asked like, hey, would you apply to speak at our word camp? And I was like, yes, I will, and those kinds of things. And that's it snowballs, right? So it starts small, And then you start to build this network, and it's not just like you make one connection to the next. It's not like a string of pearls where, one to the next, to the next, to the next.
That's a
It's
great way
like
to put
this, it's this net, right? That's why it's called networking and not like line working, because everybody's interconnected with each other. And so you start to realize that your touch points have grown exponentially. And it's really fascinating to watch it happen, especially when you're not intentional about it. Like I wasn't at the end, I am now very intentional about it. But
Mhm.
at the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know I was networking. And luckily lucked into some of the things that brought me to where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that intersection of networking and community where you just fall so
Mhm.
naturally. So, and that's probably why WordPress was so attractive to you, also, right? Like that
Yeah.
really big community that doesn't feel like, especially at the time, right? Like not like people were
Mhm.
trying to sell. Networking has a sales aspect sound to it,
True. Yeah.
uh, which is why I don't love the word, but it's functionally what it is, because like
Yeah.
ultimately you want to end up making money. Um, but I guess it depends
Yeah.
on your motivation. Let me talk about that for a second, because I'm not
Yeah.
motivated by making money. I like to make money, and network does help. I'm motivated by helping people. Like I really
Yeah.
am. Like that's what makes me happy. Like a paycheck makes me satisfied, but like helping people makes me very happy. And like I help people in a weird way. Like I don't like having make you chicken soup. Like that would make me miserable. I like
Yeah.
solving people's other like tangible problems, and
Yeah.
that I think is what makes connections deeper.
Mhm.
So maybe yours isn't solving problems or whatever it is, but it has to be something beyond financial that you see in that person.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. One of the things, we talked a couple weeks ago about WP speakers that I built, and I had people telling me that I should be charging people to be in the database. And I realized, number one, that because I work with so many underrepresented groups, that is a financial burden to a lot of people outside of the United States. Even $10 is a lot to a lot of people outside the United States. And so that was not something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to gatekeep it at all in any way, shape, or form. And I didn't know how fast it would grow or how big it would grow. And I didn't expect that I would get a lot of sponsorship on it. But within one day, within 24 hours, I had like 70 people in the database and 5 paying sponsors. And so if I had charged $10 or $20 a person, I would not have made as much money as I did just having people want to invest sponsorship dollars in it. And by having the idea of making it open and available to everybody, it actually has returned more dividends than anything else. I think there's a
What
lot
a
to be
great
said for that.
example. I love that illustration.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I talk about AI all the time, as you know, but I do think in a
Yes,
world of AI, the thing that I know without a doubt is humans are more valuable than anything else, a human connection, right? Because
absolutely.
a human coder sitting in a closet, like, cool. A robot does that. I'm sorry. Sorry to human coders
Right.
sitting in the closet. Robots are going to be doing that, but they can't hang out with people as in the way that we can hang out. And that human connection is
Exactly.
really important.
I
I'm
agree.
excited that we had this
100%.
topic today.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for leaning into it with me. I think that it's very valuable, and I hope that other people will enjoy thinking about it. And if they do have questions, we're always happy to answer them either through the contact form on our website. You can reach either one of us directly on Twitter, or you can come into us openly on Twitter or through DMs. We're always
Or you can just drop us a
happy to
message when
talk
you're
to
thinking
people.
about us, right? Like networking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll
All right.
see
Thanks,
y'all on the
everybody.
next episode. Thanks. This has been Michelle Rochette and Hazel Kimpo with Audacity Marketing. Dare to be different and dominate your market with Audacity.